The Berlin Shadows, a William Harlow story, Part 1. The Dame with the German Accent. The rain was coming down like bullets on the streets of Los Angeles that October night in 1942. I was sitting in my office on the third floor of the Cahunga building, nursing a whiskey that had seen better decades and wondering why I'd ever thought becoming a private detective was a good idea. The war had been good to some people. It hadn't been particularly kind to William Harlow. My name's on the door in faded gold letters, right next to a crack in the glass that's been there since Pearl Harbor. The crack runs right through the W in William, which seemed appropriate somehow. Everything about me had been cracked since December 7th. I was just reaching for the bottle again when she walked in. She didn't knock, which should have been my first warning. Dames who don't knock usually bring trouble, and this one looked like she'd been manufactured in a trouble factory and shipped direct to my office. She was tall, maybe 5'8" in heels that could have been classified as weapons. Hair the color of wheat in a German field, which, given what happened later, was more prophetic than I knew at the time. Her coat was expensive, the kind you see in department store windows, but never on the women who can actually afford them. She wore it like she'd been born in it. "Mr. Harlow," her accent was slight, just a hint of something that wasn't quite American. "I need your help. Lady, it's past midnight. My help comes at overtime rates after 10. She reached into her purse, a move that made my hand drift toward the 38 in my desk drawer, and pulled out a roll of bills thick enough to choke a German U-boat. "Will this cover your overtime?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Have a seat, miss. Schmidt, Ingrid Schmidt." She sat down like she was posing for a statue. "I need you to find someone. Missing persons is my specialty." "Who's gone missing?" "My brother, Klaus. He disappeared 3 days ago." I pulled out a notepad and tried to look professional. "When did you see him last?" "Tuesday night. He was supposed to meet someone at the Ambassador Hotel. He never came home." Her voice caught just enough to sound genuine. "I'm afraid something terrible has happened." "What kind of work does Klaus do?" She hesitated. "In my line of work, hesitation is like a flashing neon sign that says, 'Here be dragons.' He works for the government, something to do with translations." "Translations of what?" Another hesitation. "German documents. Klaus came to America in 1938. He's been helping the war effort." I leaned back in my chair, which squeaked like a rusty gate. "Miss Schmidt, in case you haven't noticed, we're at war with Germany. German nationals don't just get jobs translating German documents for Uncle Sam without a lot of scrutiny. Klaus and I are refugees. We fled the Nazi regime." Her eyes hardened. "We are loyal Americans now." Who was he supposed to meet at the Ambassador?" "I don't know. He said it was work-related." I named my daily rate plus expenses. She didn't even blink, just peeled off the bills like she was dealing cards. That was warning sign number 2. In my experience, people who don't haggle about money are either very rich or very desperate. Sometimes both. "I'll need a recent photo of Klaus and a list of his friends, his haunts, anywhere he might go if he was in trouble." She opened her purse again and handed me a photograph. The man in the picture looked like he could have been cast in a movie about German officers' square jaw, pale eyes, blonde hair slicked back with enough oil to lubricate a tank. He was standing next to what looked like a military vehicle, but someone had torn off the bottom part of the photo. "Handsome fellow. This the only photo you have?" "Yes, Klaus doesn't like having his picture taken." I tucked the photo into my jacket pocket. "Where are you staying, Miss Schmidt?" "The Roosevelt Hotel, room 412. "I'll be in touch." She stood up, and for a moment she looked like she wanted to say something else. Instead, she just nodded and walked to the door. Her heels clicked on the linoleum like a metronome counting down to something. After she left, I sat there looking at the money and thinking about German refugees and missing translators. The whole thing smelled fishier than the docks at San Pedro, but the money was real and my rent was due. I locked the cash in my safe and headed for the door. If I was going to find Klaus Schmidt, I'd better start at the Ambassador Hotel. The Ambassador was the kind of place where movie stars went to be seen, and politicians went to make deals they couldn't make at City Hall. The lobby was all marble and crystal, designed to make you feel like a pauper even if you were dressed in your Sunday best. The night clerk was a thin man with the look of someone who'd seen too much and remembered too little. I showed him Klaus's photo. "Yeah, I seen him. Tuesday night, maybe 10 o'clock. He was waiting in the bar. Waiting for who? Couldn't say. I was busy. He looked at the $5 bill I'd placed on the counter. But I might remember more if my memory got jogged. I added another 5 to the first. How's your memory now? Getting better. He was meeting some guy, older fellow, maybe 60, walked with a cane. They talked for maybe an hour, then left together. Get a good look at the older man? Not really. He kept to the shadows, you know. But I heard the German kid call him Colonel. Colonel what? Didn't catch a last name, but here's the thing, after they left, I saw the Colonel get into a black Cadillac with government plates. I thanked him and headed for the bar. The bartender was more helpful after I bought him a drink and explained I was looking for a missing person. He remembered Klaus and the Colonel too. Nervous, both of them, he said, polishing a glass. The German kid kept looking over his shoulder, and the old man with the cane, he had his back to the wall the whole time. They drank bourbon, talked in whispers. Catch any of the conversation? Just bits and pieces. Something about a package that needed to be delivered safely. The old man kept mentioning someone called the Raven. I was starting to get that feeling you get when you're walking down a dark alley and hear footsteps behind you. This wasn't just a missing person case. This was something bigger, something that could get a man killed if he wasn't careful. I drove back to my office through empty streets, thinking about German refugees and government colonels and mysterious packages. Los Angeles looked different at night during wartime, darker, more dangerous, like the city was holding its breath waiting for something bad to happen. Back in my office, I made some calls. I had a contact at the Office of War Information, a guy named Pete Kowalski who owed me a favor from before the war. Pete worked the night shift, translating intercepted enemy communications. Billy, what the hell are you doing calling me at 3 in the morning? Looking for information on a Klaus Schmidt, German national supposed to be working as a translator for the government. There was a long pause. Where'd you get that name? His sister hired me to find him. He's been missing since Tuesday. Another pause, longer this time. Billy, you need to drop this right now. Come on, Pete, just tell me if the guy's legit. I can't tell you anything about Klaus Schmidt, and if you're smart, you'll forget you ever heard the name. The line went dead. I hung up the phone and poured another whiskey. When government men start telling you to forget names, it usually means the name belongs to someone who's either very important or very dead. I was starting to think Klaus Schmidt might be both. I spent the next hour going through my files, looking for any connection between German nationals and government work. I found 3 cases from the past year involving people who'd claimed to be refugees, but turned out to be something else entirely. One was a saboteur who'd tried to blow up the Douglas aircraft plant. Another was a woman who'd been passing information to U-boats off the coast. The third had simply vanished one night, leaving behind a hotel room full of fake identities. The pattern was starting to look familiar. I was just about to call it a night when I heard footsteps in the hallway outside my office. Slow, careful footsteps, like someone was trying not to make noise. I pulled the .38 from my desk drawer and moved to the window. A black Cadillac was parked across the street. Government plates. The footsteps stopped outside my door. I waited, the gun heavy in my hand, listening to the rain drum against the window. After a long minute, the footsteps moved away, but the Cadillac stayed put. I had the distinct feeling that Klaus Schmidt's disappearance was about to become the least of my problems. The next morning brought sunshine and a hangover in that order. I was sitting in my office, drinking coffee that could have stripped paint and trying to figure out my next move when the phone rang. Harlow. Mr. Harlow, this is Ingrid Schmidt. Have you found any trace of my brother? I'm working on it. Tell me, Miss Schmidt, did Klaus ever mention someone called the Raven? Silence. Then, where did you hear that name? Someone at the ambassador remembered it from Klaus's conversation. Who is the Raven? I don't know. Klaus never mentioned anyone by that name. But her voice said she was lying. Miss Schmidt, I think we need to meet. There are some things about your brother's disappearance that don't add up. What kind of things? The kind that are better discussed in person. How about lunch at the Pacific dining car? 1 o'clock. She agreed, but I could hear the worry in her voice. After I hung up, I sat there thinking about government cars and mysterious ravens, and why everyone seemed to know more about Klaus Schmidt than they were willing to tell me. I was about to leave for lunch when my door opened and a man walked in without knocking. He was around 60, distinguished-looking, and walked with a silver-headed cane. He was wearing a colonel's uniform. "Mr. Harlow, we need to talk. About Klaus Schmidt. About staying alive." He closed the door behind him and turned the lock. "My name is Colonel James Morrison, U.S. Army Intelligence. Klaus Schmidt was working for me." "Doing what?" "That's classified. What's not classified is that he's dead." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "How do you know?" "Because I killed him." Morrison sat down in the chair Ingrid Schmidt had occupied the night before. He placed his cane across his knees and looked at me with pale blue eyes that had seen too much war. 3 months ago, we intercepted communications suggesting that German intelligence had placed an agent in Los Angeles. Someone with access to aircraft manufacturing plans, shipping schedules, information that could help U-boats target our convoys. And you thought it was Klaus Schmidt. We knew it was Klaus Schmidt. We had photographs of him meeting with known German agents. We had recordings of him transmitting coded messages. Klaus Schmidt wasn't a refugee, Mr. Harlow. He was a spy. I leaned back in my chair, trying to process what Morrison was telling me. If you knew he was a spy, why didn't you arrest him? Because we wanted to know who he was working with. Klaus Schmidt was small fish. We needed the big fish. Morrison's eyes were as cold as a Montana winter. So we turned him, made him a double agent. He continued his espionage work, but he reported everything to us. For 3 months, Klaus Schmidt fed false information to his German handlers while we identified the entire spy ring. What went wrong? Someone found out. Last Tuesday night, Klaus was supposed to meet me at the Ambassador Hotel to report on a planned sabotage operation at the Long Beach Naval Shipyard. Instead, he told me he'd been compromised. Someone had discovered he was working for us. Morrison stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the street. Klaus was terrified. He said they were going to kill him, and they were going to kill his sister, too. Ingrid Schmidt is really his sister. Oh, yes, but she's not the innocent refugee she pretends to be. Morrison turned back to me. Ingrid Schmidt is Klaus's handler. She's the one who's been passing his stolen information to Berlin. The room seemed to tilt sideways. I thought about the beautiful woman with the German accent, the thick roll of bills, the hesitation in her voice when I'd asked about her brother's work. You're telling me the woman who hired me is a Nazi spy. I'm telling you the woman who hired you is the reason her brother is dead. Morrison's voice was flat, emotionless. When Klaus told me he'd been compromised, I knew we had to act fast. We arranged for him to disappear, to be relocated with a new identity, but Klaus never made it to the safe house. What happened? Ingrid happened. She found out about our plan and had Klaus killed before he could reveal the names of the other agents in the network. Morrison walked back to my desk. We found his body yesterday morning in Griffith Park. 3 bullets in the back of the head. I thought about Ingrid Schmidt sitting in my office, playing the worried sister, crying crocodile tears for a brother she'd had murdered. Why are you telling me this? Because Ingrid Schmidt didn't hire you to find her brother, Mr. Harlow. She hired you to find out what we know about her spy ring. Morrison leaned forward. She's been using you. Using me how? Think about it. She shows up at your office with a story about a missing brother. She pays you enough money to ensure you'll take the case. Then she sits back and watches while you make inquiries, talk to government contacts, ask questions that reveal how much U.S. intelligence knows about her operation. The pieces were starting to fall into place, and I didn't like the picture they were forming. She's been monitoring my investigation, every step of the way. And now that she knows what she needs to know, you've become a liability. Morrison stood up. Mr. Harlow, Ingrid Schmidt is going to try to kill you. I looked at the clock on my desk. 12:30. I was supposed to meet her at the Pacific dining car in 30 minutes. What do you want me to do? Morrison smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I want you to keep your appointment, Mr. Harlow, but this time you're going to be working for me. Next time. William Harlow walks into a trap at the Pacific dining car, but who's really hunting whom? The mysterious raven finally emerges from the shadows, and Harlow discovers that in the world of wartime espionage, the deadliest enemies often wear the most beautiful faces. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next thrilling episode of the Berlin Shadows.